I am not in the weeds in refugee ministry quite as much as a lot of you guys. That's a good thing in terms of being in the weeds, right? I was overseas for 13 years in East Africa, Malawi, and Mozambique, and moved to Portland, Oregon 4 years ago, and wanted to get involved in refugee work. And so have tried to sort of set up like an ESL cafe, and it failed because we couldn't match up volunteers well with English language learners. It just never really became a thing that worked out. And then we went a couple months ago into ESL Companions, where we started setting up people online so that they could use Facebook Messenger and Zoom, and now everyone is trying this. So we didn't discover anything new, but the world discovered that we need to be all trying this at this point. Hannah and I do not know each other. We just met today, but Jacob Mao is a mutual friend of ours up in Chicago who does the podcast Beyond Soundbites. And so I'm excited about joining in today and listening to Hannah, who is going to be sharing a little bit about ESL in terms of well, let me just say she's been researching mental well-being and how that really has a role in learning and community development for ESL adults. I'll let her talk a little bit more about that. She's in Chicago, and her last name is Bonifacius, right? Did I get that?
You got it.
Okay, great. She is in Chicago, loves it there, but she's from Indiana originally, although we learned today that she wouldn't mind being in San Diego if she had to pick a new spot.
Seriously.
So Refugee, yes. Refugee Highway Partnership North America is part of a global body where we just are a loose affiliation of people that love Jesus and love refugees and the forcibly displaced. So we're not any kind of official group per se, but we're a loose network, and we want to support you guys. We want to see relationships come together. So a couple things that we want to ask you guys to do today is to open up your chat windows and put in there your details in terms of who you are, how you're involved in refugee work, and how someone can get in touch with you. And then we encourage you guys to be private messaging each other so that you can actually link up with people, especially if you find that they're doing something similar or you're in a place that is maybe nearby. And speaking of nearby, we do have these WhatsApp groups. Some of you are using it, some of you aren't, but that's what we've found is kind of the new tool that people are using to try to share requests or experiences with each other in the same region. So I would encourage you guys to follow up on joining that, and you can just get a hold of me for those things. Is there any questions from anybody before we move into hearing from Hannah? No? Okay. We will probably last until about 10 to 10:30, but I think Hannah's going to encourage some ongoing discussions that will be small group based. I'm probably going to take off at 10 o'clock my time, so in another 50 minutes, but feel free to keep going, and this will be recorded and uploaded later on. Okay, take it away, Hannah.
Thanks, Tim. So I'm really grateful to be here with all of you on a Saturday. Perhaps you're like me and you're on Zoom calls all week long, and so committing to one more Zoom call feels a little exhausting. So hey, look at you, look at us, we're here. We're doing this on a Saturday, and what that tells me is that this topic resonates with you and is important to you. For the work that you're doing. I'm really grateful. When I started in, teaching ESL about 10 years ago, mental health was not a topic that was often talked about at conferences. Some of you have been doing this work for far longer than I have, and I wonder if that's your situation as well. But when I went to an Illinois T-cell conference that I've gone to for like the past 6 years, I went last year to speak on this topic. There were 3 other presenters at that time. So it is most definitely gaining traction in our field, thankfully so, because there's a great intersection of how our mental well-being plays into our learning, and that's for all of us, but especially if you're coming from a place of having migrated, having experienced forced migration, having gone through the United States legal system, or maybe any country's legal system for that part. And here you are meeting people where they are, right? That's what we do. We meet people where they are. And so, yeah, so I just want to share my screen. I do have a PowerPoint just to keep me on topic. And let's talk about this a little bit more. Can everyone see my screen? If anybody can't, can you just let me know? All right. All right, so just some guiding questions for us. I'm gonna try this. Oh, yeah, there we go. Let's think about how do we teach and lead online classes with social and emotional health of our students and ourselves in mind. I want to put that in there, ourselves as well. Now, this topic may be new to you, not just in an online setting, but today I'm going to focus this because I believe that online learning is going to become an important part of our lives going forward from now. I've been teaching online now for 2 months, and it's going to be at least a couple more months here in Chicago of doing that, but I am guessing that virtual learning is now kind of a mainstay because we know how to do it. Even if we do get back in our classrooms or tutoring one-on-one with our students. So let's talk about how to embrace this for an online format. I want to talk about the techniques that will practically help students deal with the stress and worry of COVID in their lives. And then thinking through how can we support and encourage classroom community within the limitations of physical distance. As Tim shared, it sounds like your ESL Connections group is like more of a one-on-one format. Is that correct, Tim? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And many of you may be in that situation as well. It's more one-on-one. But I, and maybe others, do teach a classroom context. So just thinking through how we can also support some community development through an online system. I want to talk about the goal of ESL, just kind of to ground us though, as we go into this discussion. So we're here, why? To learn English. That's the primary goal of an ESL class. And unless we have degrees in social work and counseling, which some of you may, we can't be a counselor for our students. So I want that to be really well understood from the beginning. I am not suggesting that we become professional counselors to our students, because if we don't have the training, we will be ill-equipped and we will do harm and not good. And that's our goal, is not to do harm. But as you know, because you showed up today, and as I know, because especially the last 5 years when I started to work with people of refugee and asylum background in the United States, students bring really big emotions and really hard stories to class. They bring them before class, during class, and after class. And I started to say, hold on, nowhere in my undergrad or my graduate degree did anyone prepare me to deal with this. This is a significant portion of my job as an ESL teacher. Yet I don't know how to respond to students who are being triggered because of trauma, who aren't responding to maybe some of the curriculum that I've written or that I'm using because it's bringing up a traumatic memory for them, or it's shutting them down. They're responding in different ways. And I just wanted to know, how can I respond to students in that moment? And I wanted to know, how can I prepare and present lessons that will help support them and give them safety? So we're thinking about getting kind of ahead and not just reacting in the moment and being confused, because I've been there and it sucks. And maybe you've been there and it's hard. And so let's just kind of dive into this today. So the first thing I want to talk about is creating a safe and supportive environment. And I want to know, and I encourage you to unmute your microphone, what comes to mind when you think of a safe, supportive online class space?
One of the things that that I discovered rapidly at the beginning of teaching by Zoom, in fact, was that it's very helpful to set down the classroom expectations, because they are slightly different in Zoom, but this is an important thing to be aware of for this particular aspect of it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, thank you. Are you ready for me to just have them fly in and tell you? Okay.
May I ask if people use Zoom? Is that the most common platform?
It has been for us.
Yeah, we're also using Zoom and WhatsApp. Video chat for WhatsApp along with texting. Yeah. So no matter what your platform you're using, there are a few things that came to mind along with expectations, which we will talk about in a little bit, which is room and acceptance for a range of emotions. And I'll go into these in more detail in a little bit. And that the instructor is vulnerable and offers their emotions as well. And ability to forego sharing their feelings. Instructors don't force that on anyone. So, for example, well, I'll talk about that in a second. I will go into this more, but just to know, having the ability to share your feelings if you want to, or not share your feelings if you don't want to, and making that like well stated for your student. If you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it, but here's some space to do that. Activities and lessons are planned with student choice in mind. I heard something, I was watching a webinar, and it was with a counselor who said, everyone is learning. There's a collective learning going on in the world right now that none of us have control over anything. And for some of us who maybe have had the more of an illusion of control in our lives for various reasons, that has hit us quite hard. But what the counselor said is that we do have influence over certain things. And I started to think about that with my students in mind. And so much they've had to let go of this idea of control in their lives. And you've probably seen that. But is there any way that we can, say, how about let's give them some more choice so that they do feel like they have more influence over their class time? And how can that maybe prepare them to take ownership of the class, take ownership of their English learning, and feel like they have agency? So that's another thought. So some questions. I ask, I have a WhatsApp group with 3 ladies. We read a book together and we do worksheets together. And I always start with one student a day. Hey, what do you want to do first? Do you want to read the book or do you want to do worksheets? So it's just like something simple, but how can I give them more of a choice in that? What do you want to read next? I used to choose the books for my students if we were doing like literature, but maybe we could give them options or throw out like, I would love you to bring something to class. Allow them to choose something in their home to write about, so more of a free writing. And allowing them to tell you when they want to take a break. So these are just some ideas for choice, student choice. And here is that all important rules and expectations. Do students know what is expected from them? How much class time? How much homework? How to access it? Do students know how and when they can chat, text, call online with the teacher and other students? Has that been explicitly stated from them? This hour to this hour. No texting during the night, maybe. Every situation looks different. I'm not telling you have to shut that off, but what boundaries do you need to set up so people feel the safest? Also, making sure that other students know. For example, in WhatsApp, unfortunately, the privacy feature is that everyone knows each other's phone numbers. However, what we found in our program is everyone has WhatsApp. It wasn't a online program anyone had to learn. So it was the first tool that we initiated with, right? We initiated with WhatsApp. We put people in groups. However, everyone can see everyone else's phone number. So what happens when somebody texts another person not about the class? Does that woman or does that man know that they need to contact you right away to shut that down? Just making everyone know you're on their side. All right. So let's go into the lesson. We're all probably
Hannah,
teaching.
may I ask a question?
Yes, you may. Who's talking? I can't.
It's Cecilia. Yeah, it's like that when there are so many people, you can't always see. So it's Cecilia, and the question I have is with regard to if a student wants, you said if a student is uncomfortable with something, with the way another student contacted them, they're to contact the teacher, and then the teacher can shut that down. Well, I had a question about the nature of shut that down, what the teacher's role might be.
Sure.
How do you shut that down?
I think it's just gonna really, unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you here, Cecilia. I'm just gonna say it's gonna depend on that. I think I work in a program where we have really specific policies.
Yes.
And so for me, I go to my manager, we talk it over depending on the content of the messaging, and then we make an action plan going from there. It may be having the other student has to leave the course. It may be just giving them a reprimand of like a suspension for a week. It really just depends on the situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I would say to talk it over with someone else that you're either tutoring with, if you have someone like that, or a program manager, so you're not making that decision alone.
That's very wise. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Good question. So going into the lesson, how do you warm up and what do you talk about? So thinking about right from the beginning, how can you create space for safety and support right from the beginning of the class time? Now I'm gonna say this is pretty cultural. For me, I feel safest when somebody's right there at the beginning to welcome me by name and start talking, because guess what? I'm an extrovert. That's not cultural necessarily, that's personality type, but that's also a part of like the culture that I grew up in. But for some people, it's like, I don't want to talk to you until I have to, right? So this is going to be a little bit of reading what cultures you're working with and knowing, would it be nice for them to enter in and you talk to them from the beginning? Would it be nice to have a question just in the chat that they can respond to? It depends on your relationship with them. Do you have a strong relationship with them before you went to online classes? Is this a new relationship you have? How can you communicate we are learning English right from the beginning? This is also difficult with lower level students, right? So if you're teaching really low level students in the beginning, it may be okay just to have some time of silence and say like, wait 2 minutes, begin, right? And that might be just enough because now they know what to expect. There is something that we do in my class, I teach Monday through Thursday. I teach low beginners through advanced students in 4 different Zoom calls every day. Something that we initiated on Mondays is to ask about their feelings. So this is something that they can expect. It's a time that's scheduled, and then they can decide if they want to opt out or not. And I ask it in different questions. I put it on a board. I put it in the chat. Say, how are you feeling today? Or maybe I'll say, oh, the weather is so cloudy and rainy, which is like 75% of the time in Chicago, but it's sunny today. Or the weather is sunny. How do you feel about this? Weather and feelings are really integrated. Or we'll ask, what was the best part of yesterday? How did you feel? Or what was the worst part? How did you feel? Or I stole this from Brené Brown. I don't know if you know her, but she is a great person talking about social emotional research right now. And she has a podcast that I highly suggest called Unlocking Us. But with her team, her research team, she has them start each Zoom meeting, say, name 2 emotions you have right now. It's a really quick way to get people talking. And I want to show you something. So I don't know if you're familiar with this online resource, Quizlet. I use it with students for vocabulary development. They are online flashcards. And my students have been given feelings vocabulary so that they can answer that question. So I just want to go. Yeah, so this is something that I created. I can create a flashcard set. There are, actually, is it something? No, it's something, oh, I almost just, sorry, Iona, I just copyright infringement right there. I didn't create this one. I searched for it in Quizlet and found it. Okay, so there are 33 terms with pictures in this that students can study for homework on their own. And then they can talk about it. They can use these words whenever it comes up on Monday morning. So we're not just asking the question, we're giving them an English lesson out of it, and we're giving them words to express themselves. Okay. If you are not familiar with Quizlet, I would say that it is a great resource, and there are a lot of YouTube videos about how to use it. Another question to ask yourself, would it be beneficial to allow your students to choose their topics of study? Again, just giving them influence over what they're learning. I wanted to show you this website, Marshall Adult Education. This PowerPoint can be sent out after this as well, so you will have access to this. It's reading. These stories are in an online format. These stories can be printed. We start multiple levels here. So the lowest level, 0.7. How about I just show you? For example, maybe a sick day. So there's some pre-reading. There's a picture. There's a question to warm up with. Vocabulary. And then here is the reading. I love this because it's numbered. So if you're working in a group, you can say, okay, so-and-so read 18 through 35. So-and-so read 44 through 58. Again, 0.7 is the lowest level. And I know for some of you, you're looking at that and you're like, I mean, I'm working with pre-literate students, right? And they can't read a single letter. But so this is for some higher level. Again, I work with high beginning, low beginning. So for my low beginning work, learners, this would work for sure. And I present them with options and I say, hey, each person choose 1 or 2 of these that you want to read about in this category. And then we'll read about it together. And so then you know what topics are also relevant to your students at this time. What are they really interested in learning? Also, something that we found through research of mental health is that sometimes students don't want to explicitly, I would say a lot of the time, we, just humans, don't want to explicitly talk about our traumatic experiences or our hardest times in our lives. So a great way to allow people to feel connection to others is to introduce characters through literature who have gone through some of the same trials that your students have. And all of a sudden, they're introduced to a person who they can relate to. And then all of a sudden, they don't feel so alone. I'm just giving you 2 ideas for books. The first one is called Seed Folks. It's about an immigrant community in Cleveland, Ohio, and they plant a garden together. And each character, the book is written from the viewpoint of each character who plants the garden and their experience. So I really like it because in my classroom, we've got people represented from a lot of those countries. And so they're able to say like, oh, that person's a lot like me, or I had that happen to me too. Or they might not say that. They'll say, wow, what a tough experience that person had, right? But you know, something is triggered. Or then, I don't know if you've heard of the Who Was books. These books are for higher level learners, so is Seed Folks. We do a lot of summarizing from these books. But these are non-fictional characters from history, right? So they're historical figures that have gone through trials and have made it through. I remember, so I would have never had this connection, but I had an Armenian Iraqi man who read about Harriet Tubman and did a presentation about her. And her experience of having to flee generationally, that there was generational flight. His grandparents were refugees from Armenia to Iraq, and then he was a refugee from Iraq to the United States. That there was like generational movement, migration from oppression hit home to him, right? Who would ever think that an Armenian Iraqi man and Harriet Tubman would have any connection? But there they did, and it helped him to process that. Also want us to just incorporate the arts, right? Having fun, offering enjoyment, offering creative outlets. So here are a couple of websites. I don't know if your students love karaoke as much as mine, but here we go. I do not love karaoke, but these people do, so we karaoke. So I'm gonna go to the web one. I also use this to, like, if I can't figure out what a song means in Spanish on the radio that I enjoy, I'll like go and look it up and then I can do the karaoke. So learning English, and then here are some top songs. They can search for, like, the one I always give them is John Legend. I love John Legend. I love his voice. And then this is a beautiful song. I don't know if you've ever heard he and Sarah Bareilles do A Safe Place to Land, but this is a song about migration, flight, and refugee movement. So having them listen to a song like that and karaoke to it could be really meaningful for them. How it works here, I'll just click on this one. They can play a game or just go down to karaoke. I always tell them, maybe later, don't create that free account. Nobody cares, okay. And then you can play the video. It starts, and then the words are down here. And to see, this is a slow song, so it's kind of nice. Sarah Bareilles has an amazing voice, right? So they can also choose songs. So I'll just show you a second.
But holding your breath is safer than breathing.
Okay, so there's one example. Another example. I don't know if you've ever seen lyric scaps. This one goes, You can just do this one. Again, karaoke, quiz, beginner. You can play games with these. But it's the same thing. It just connects it to the YouTube video and then they can read it.
Hannah, you've got awesome resources, and I just want to see if you're going to give us a list of all these. I'm starting to copy and paste really quick, you know.
Yeah, so the PowerPoint will go out, so you'll be able to click on those. Yep. Yeah, and then I think something that also students have done and they've enjoyed in a couple of our different classes for World Relief with a talent show, and then another person did show and tell, and this is great for multi-levels. Our pre-literacy teacher did a show and tell, and this is something they've created or they've cooked in their home, or maybe an heirloom they have with them. They bring it and they show it, and then just be able to say a couple of words about that if they're pre-literate. If they're higher, maybe it could be like asking a few questions about that and having discussion with other students. There are so many ways you can do this, but just having something they're proud of being presented. And then a talent show. I mean, maybe they play guitar and you would never know that, right? Well, they're at home and they have access to their guitar right now. So yeah, that could be something really fun. I included this. This is a blog that I like to follow, Fluent U, and it's just different contributors who give their ideas about how to, how to share in creative ways. Simon says art, interview the subject, wish you were here. So just all sorts of ideas for how to incorporate more creativity into your class lessons. Okay. And then some thoughts. How much time is given for free discussion? Do students get to choose some of the questions they discuss, and how are they grouped or paired in their breakout rooms? As I was making this, I was like, oh man, I'm not doing this. I'm not letting them choose the questions. We do discussion because I do 4 different hours. I do 3 Zoom calls and 1 WhatsApp call. WhatsApp because these students don't have the technology or the ability to figure out Zoom. So we've made it a WhatsApp call for them. So anyway, we have all my students used to be in one big classroom, right? And now they're all broken up. They don't see each other throughout the week. And I started to realize they missed each other. Like in different groups, they were asking about each other. And so I said, oh, how about every Thursday, we do a big group discussion at the end of our Thursday classes so that they can see each other. And I was really patting myself on the back for that. I was like making discussion questions. And then I'm writing the slide. I'm like, I haven't had a single student get to decide what they talk about. What are we doing? They have to be able to talk about what they want to talk about. And they do anyway. I mean, you know, I throw out the discussion questions and then I go into a group and they're totally talking about something else. So I think they do know they have freedom, but still, I think just always allowing students to feel that they have that freedom. And then ending the lesson. So I'm very excited to teach you this today. This is something I've done in my class with my students for 2 years. And again, this is something that I allow students to opt out of. It is not a mandatory practice. However, I would say 80 to 90% of all the students I've ever taught this love it, practice it on their own, and very willingly participate. And if I ever forget it, remind me. Okay, so this can be done in class and it can be formatted to online. And we are going to do it together. So again, just like the feelings is a scheduled routine, so they know what to expect every Monday. I'm gonna ask them about their feelings. This is also scheduled. The end of every Thursday, we do deep breathing, meditative thought together. And so, everybody, I'd like you to get into a comfortable position. If you are comfortable, doing this. If you don't want to do it, you can opt out. I want you to be aware of where you're tight, and if you can, do some stretching. I also want to share every move here is intentional. I get big intentionally because research has shown that body language of getting big tells students of some self-importance, right? So you're getting big, I'm stretching. Again, I'm telling students constantly, you don't have to do this, right? If it doesn't feel good, please don't do it. Don't hurt your back, don't throw it out, right? Do some shoulder rolls. Okay, 2 feet on the ground, get your shoulders in a comfortable position. You can put your hands up or you can put your hands down. And everybody together, one more thing. Pay attention to your mouth. Is it really tight? Loosen your jaw. Think about right here between your nose and your eyebrows. Is it scrunched up? Loosen it. Loosen everything in your face. Is your tongue up here? Relax your mouth. Relax your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes, but you can if you want to. And everyone, we're going to take a deep breath in through our nose, out through our mouth. Let it go. Keep breathing. Always in through our nose, out through our mouth. Your stomach is like a balloon. Fill it up. Keep breathing. All right, keep breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Now I want you to think of something that is good. Anything good in your life. To pause here for all of you, I never give examples because something good for me is maybe something terrible for another person. Okay. In through your nose, out through your mouth. All right, I want you to think of something you're thankful for. Maybe you believe in God and you want to say thank you to God in your head for something. Or maybe you can just be thankful for something that's in your life right now. Another note for you all, I am praying, I'm a Christian, I pray for my students during this time that the Lord would be protecting their minds from the enemy and from the evil one, and that they would be able to focus and truly think of positive things. And so I would encourage you to be doing that for your students as well. I don't want this time of silence to be something that really triggers anything or hurts them. So keep breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. And then the last one, I want you to think of something you are proud of about yourself. Not anyone else in your life. You can be proud of your children or your husband or your wife or your mom and your dad another time. But right now, I want you to think about something you are proud of for yourself. Keep breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Just so you know, I am praying right now about when to end this practice. I never end it like regimented after 2 minutes, after 3 minutes. Sometimes I feel the Holy Spirit say like, stop it. And then I know maybe somebody is experiencing something bad. sometimes I feel like let it go longer, a few more breaths. So that's going to be your and the Holy Spirit's conversation in this, if you're praying about it. I'll wrap up always, though, by saying, everybody, we're in this together. Can you please take another deep breath in through your mouth, and this time audibly let go through your voice. Okay, come back to class. Maybe wiggle your fingers. Move your neck. Let's do some more stretches. And then in this time, I talk to my students and I say, we just got to another end of class. Even though everything is hard right now, you chose to get up and to come to class. You didn't have to do that, and I'm so proud of you. I'm happy to be your teacher. I'm glad that you are here. We need you, and you are important. Okay, so that is a practice that if you want to put into your class time, you can. Something I always stress to every group that I talk to about mental health, and this is going to be harder or easier depending on your location in the world. But it is to have a list for referrals. It is to know the mental health professionals or counselors in your area, and I would stress that are culturally competent, that are informed of the needs of your community, and that will access translators. Again, this is going to be easier or very hard depending on where you're working. But why this is important, I did a research project 2 years ago where I surveyed various ESL instructors about how they responded to students in crisis. And then there was a correlating question of if they had access to a list of mental health professionals. And there was a direct link between ESL teachers who have that list, know mental health professionals in their area that they can go to, and if they knew how to respond to that student in crisis. And if you don't know who to turn to, guess what you do? You try to become a counselor and you fail. Well, sometimes you get it right. We're all human beings, so sometimes you really can maybe do some good for that student, but sometimes you do harm. You don't know how to respond, or that was a really tricky situation, right? It just depends on what the student's bringing to you. And we've all been in that situation. But there is a link between knowing mental health professionals or counselors that you can call upon for yourself and for your students, and knowing your place in that conversation, how much you can support and comfort while not expecting from yourself to be a counselor. And that's something that's really critical. I really tanked one day, and I did a classroom discussion and a writing prompt that deeply triggered a couple of my students. And it really, it was hard, right? It was very humbling and really sad to me that I had caused pain. And I work in an office, a World Relief office, so I do have coworkers, and I'm close to a couple of them. And I went to one of them and I was talking, I was crying, and he said, we have PC, like, you know that through our insurance plan at World Relief, you can talk to a counselor right now. We have a hotline in our insurance. Now, I know that is a huge privilege, and maybe you don't have that. I called that counselor right away. I called a counselor on that hotline, and she helped me so much process what had happened and what I could do going forward, and just how I could forgive myself and then how I could help students process from there what had happened in the class. So basically, I did a writing prompt. They wrote something and then they shared it. And in the middle of it, one person went into a traumatic background trigger and ended up like talking about really rough things that he had seen. He was a Syrian, and he had just seen some terrible things happen. And he just started saying all of the things that he had said, and all the other students got deeply troubled, right? And it was like the writing prompt. I looked back at it and I went, duh, of course that triggered him. Like, of course, I would never write that now, right? It's gonna happen. But never feel like you're alone. Maybe for you, you don't have that insurance call line, but maybe you do have a pastor, a friend, and another friend, a friend who's a counselor. Pull your resources. Think about who you can call. Unfortunately, we will have members of our community pass away in this time, I'm guessing. If we haven't had deaths yet, praise God, right? But COVID-19 has not discriminated, especially against the most vulnerable populations. So as ESL instructors, are we prepared to maybe process how we're going to grieve together? Maybe it's you and one student. Maybe it's as a class. But maybe just think through this. And maybe you're dealing with some grief right now as a teacher, and I just want you to know, please get help, please reach out. I lost a student in December, not to COVID-19. He was a man that was my student for 4 years, he and his wife. He was dear to me, like a father. I'm still grieving. We had a support group. So one of my coworkers who's a social worker said, Hannah, your students need help grieving this. Like, thank God for coworkers who speak into my life like that. Your students need help grieving this. There is a woman in our community who will come and do like grief support groups with our clients. She's done it for me. You should call her and see if she'll come and do some support groups for you. This woman is bilingual. We had translators, and we did 3 support groups specifically on what is grief? How do you process it? What in your culture is a way to honor someone when they die? Is it okay to wear this color? Do you want to wear a different color? Is it okay if we have photos of him and we talk about that? And we had like 5 different cultures represented in that class. So it was helpful for them to also say like, oh, this person's doing that and it's not rude to them. And this person's doing that and it's not rude to them. And just to really come together and say, we're all collectively grieving. It just looks really different. Is there anyone you could call in to help you? Just even think through these questions. Yeah, so I just want to encourage you that you don't need to do this alone, and that after this call, if you are feeling like, no, you don't understand, I am alone, I am alone, please email me, okay? I'm gonna send you my email. You should have it with the Zoom call, and maybe I can research in your area some people, because I've had to do that for different places I've gone to speak, and I have been able to find some people here and there who are. So if you want help just figuring out who you could call, I am happy to do that with you. Okay, so at this time, I do want us to break out into rooms, to breakout rooms. Unfortunately, I can't share the screen while you're in a breakout room. So if you could take a picture on your phone of these questions, I will also copy and paste them into the chat. And then I'm gonna put you in a group, and you can talk for about 10 minutes, and then we'll all come back together at the end. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing. I am going to copy and paste these questions into the chat, And then I'm going to put you into a breakout room. And in the breakout room, so you just click join. If you don't want to share, again, if you don't want to share your camera, please don't. But we are going to go in there now. All right.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Hannah. We're just starting. I thought we would introduce ourselves at first because it's like, where are we coming from?
Absolutely.
Leia?
I just graduated with my master's in TESOL, and so I'm currently looking for probably an online TESOL position right now, teaching.
Wonderful. So how long, how many hours of classroom teaching did you have to do? And was any of it by Zoom?
No, I was actually able to do all of my practicums before COVID started.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but I taught for about a year and a half in Mexico while doing online school. So I've had a lot of hours teaching, but yeah, now I'm back here, and I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm kind of losing my voice.
So what's the weather like in Portland, Oregon, and how do you feel about that? Is it raining out there?
It's raining. It's been raining for a long time.
Boy.
But it's supposed to get better. Better meaning sunny in our context.
Yes.
In the next.
So I would guess some of them actually know more than I do. So yeah.
They might be tech savvy, but at least I also do an ESL Bible study. And there, the women who have children at home who are trying to do their schoolwork,
Yeah.
there aren't two computers in the house or three or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's kids, one kid's using a phone, one kid's using the computer, and then so they haven't been able to join. So maybe your situation is different, particularly when summer comes and the kids aren't technically in classes.
Yeah. No, I have had that trouble where their mom's trying to use the phone and then the kids want to play games on it. So that ends the lesson.
I just want to say, particularly since you're here, Laura? No.
Hannah.
Yeah.
Hannah.
Yeah.
That so much of this is like the trauma healing teaching that I have had and the trauma healing groups that I have facilitated.
Yeah, that's right. So I am a certified trauma healing institute person.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's one of the studies that I did at one point.
Right, and I've done them with Muslims too, the trauma healing. Not Somalis, however. My Somali community is pretty like, we're fine, thank you very much.
Yeah, they don't like to talk about emotions at all. Yeah. And in fact, a lot of times they don't even know what they're feeling. It's sort of a new
I
area.
think it's an emotion wheel, but I love the idea of those flashcards and
Yeah,
that.
that was
That's
nice.
a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I would encourage anyone who could to get the trauma healing training. And they have one lesson now that's just meant a one-off lesson meant for.
Yeah.
Covered people. Yeah.
You just make the adjustments and you do what you have to do. So
You do, and it sounds like you're doing it. That's so great.
we're thankful to still be there and getting to work. And I did not switch our classes to online because the beginning, we were planning on ending the middle of May because all our women, except for maybe 3, are Muslim, or I meant the middle because of Ramadan, and they just are like, no, we're not going to come to class. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So I switched to, I send them videos like every week or every other week with a short lesson. And
Okay.
so that, just trying to stay creative, stay connected. But Boise is starting to open up, so there's a good chance we do park days during the summer and see if we can do that with some of the ladies. But
That's great.
you been doing online classes, or what have you been doing then?
Yeah, so I don't currently run any classes. I do one-on-one work right now because in the group setting, it just didn't really translate well to online. And certainly the timing with Ramadan certainly made
really
things basically shut it down. So I'll be curious what happens next week when, now that Ramadan is over. And so, doing a lot of WhatsApp, a lot of, just connecting as much as possible for the most part, most were, what I was just really so encouraged by, I don't know if you saw this as well, is that reaching out to so many people and, especially, my refugee friends, and just checking in on them. They're all like, we're fine. We're used to this. Like, how are you?
That's the truth.
Thanks for asking. I have no idea how to do this. How do you guys do this?
One of the most beautiful things one of my friends said, she's from Syria, and she said, and this was at the very beginning when we could still visit, and she said, I've been through war, and war is man-made, and she said, everybody is pulling together to get through this, and just the awe and seeing the beauty in that, as opposed to what she's lived through during the war. And I was so encouraged by that. I had to tuck that in my heart and go, okay, we can get through.
Yeah, exactly. No,
what happened. And going forward, I just decided to not go. It was the COVID-19 subject, and I just decided not to go there anymore. The different things that are happening in the government here, or that's on the news programs and what have you. I decided not to go there.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
What do you guys think we should do going forward? I'm not currently teaching, but I know that COVID is probably going to be a topic for a long time with our students. I mean, since it's such a shared global thing, should we talk about COVID in our classrooms? That could potentially, is that a potentially triggering subject for some people? How do we handle COVID with our students?
So initially what I did was, so the way that I teach has to do with pronunciation and rhythm and rhyme and things like that, so as to get people making their voice more North American English. So I put together little jazz chants, and so I did the wash your hands, don't touch your face. And so that was one of the basic plain ones I could do. But then, of course, I've actually got the majority are advanced students. So that is a question that I'm interested in getting feedback from you also. And Hannah, thank you for joining us. You might be a better person to help walk us through this question. How do we talk about COVID-19?
Yeah, I think that I usually come at it from a physical, just like wash your hands. So just reminding students of, or giving them information about the actual issue, the actual problem first. And so I come at it kind of almost like from a clinical place of like, I need you guys to know this information for your safety. So I don't come at it from an emotional, mental health place first, because then I can gauge whether they're willing to go there or whether it's already triggered something for them. But regardless, I need them to know the physical information to keep them and their families safe, because I'm someone who has access to translated materials or who has access to like understanding the governor's stay-at-home order, so I can maybe break that down into simpler language. And I think going forward, we're going to continue to get news updates, and we're going to continue to get different guidelines from the CDC, and maybe approaching it from like, what is the CDC and why are they telling us all of these things? Then seeing how they're doing. And some students will want to really talk about it, and then some won't. And then maybe you can decide like, maybe we could do, if you're interested in talking more about how COVID has affected you, let's do a group after class once a week for anyone who's interested, and then make it an option.
Good
idea. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, because there's so many people that are affected in so many different degrees by COVID. I feel like to pull somebody off the street here in Oregon, they probably won't have a traumatic response to what's going on in our country, but like, you know, somebody, I'm thinking in the future, I guess, if somebody like lived in a refugee camp while COVID was going out, like that's totally different situation than my neighbor, you know?
That's very true. Yeah, like in the future, we're all going to have different varying levels of trauma from this. And yeah, how do we talk about it in the future? And I think that's just going to, again, be a matter of like, if it needs to be talked about, maybe starting from the physical. And if it doesn't need to be talked about, maybe letting the students bring it up. Yeah. I'm going to go see how another group is doing.
Okay, thank you, Hannah.
We'll end groups in 2 minutes.
2 minutes? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the other things that
trying to learn all this in preparation for whatever.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah.
A Saudi family. Did you say Saudi?
No. Afghan.
Afghan. Okay.
Yeah.
We just sponsored an Afghan family just before this whole thing crashed on us, and at least 2 people in that family have one with serious health issues and one with serious mental health issues.
Oh my.
I have no idea, because I'm not on the refugee support team, how they're managing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one was even in the psychiatric hospital for a couple of sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then just imagine being isolated on top.
Yeah.
And they did ask for people to come along and teach English.
Yeah.
I was not one of those persons who did that, but evidently they got people to come. I don't know how they were doing it, probably by Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe WhatsApp. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good work. Yeah.
So it's been interesting, and yeah, just trying to get the church. I don't know what it's going to be after the pandemic if we get back.
Will fear increase? Yeah.
We're all up in the air. So wow, it's so fun chatting with you.
I know, it's been a delight. Also, the fact that you two are friends and work in the same world and have kids married to each other. Do they meet at an international school?
We both had MKs, TCKs. My daughter grew up in Indonesia. Her son grew up in Congo. And so they met each other and
Nice.
It's not my computer. Something's going on.
Yeah, hi. I tried to admit you a couple of times and it wouldn't let me for some reason.
Well, Tim had the same problem. Did you know that?
So I just found that out and it didn't tell me that he was waiting for me at all, but it did tell me you were waiting for me. So I tried to admit you, but I don't know. I never saw Tim waiting. How strange.
Are the groups still meeting or what's going on?
We're all coming back now.
Okay.
Yeah. So just a last note to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for joining our call today. You will receive an email from the Refugee Highway Partnership with an evaluation, and I really ask that you fill it out. It helps me as a presenter, and it will help them with feedback to know what was helpful, what was unhelpful, what you want to know more about in the future. And so I just ask that you would fill out that evaluation, and then we will be sending you the recording and the PowerPoint. And I will put my email address in the last slide of the PowerPoint. So please contact me if you are in need of anything, and you've been an awesome group.
Hannah, is there any way to get the email addresses from the chat?
I think so.
And so I can
take
a spot of it. Is there a possibility for somebody to send that as well? I know it goes away. I don't know if it's still be there in the recording.
It does. How about I just copy and paste it all?
Okay,
and then once it's copied, thanks for saying that, because it would have been lost forever. Okay, very good. Let me just make sure that I have that. I don't know. Yeah, you are all, how about this? You are all welcome to leave, and I'm gonna figure out how to copy and paste that stuff. And you all take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Just as I'm going there, Hannah, you know, you can click the 3 dots to the right of where it says to everyone, and you can save the chat. It saves it in a bit messy because it gives the time for every time the person entered something, but you've got the whole content of your group chat there. Do you have it?
Okay. It's like, for some reason, it won't let me save it. It's there, but it's not.
The 3 dots are there and it won't let you?
The 3 dots are there. Save chat is faint, and I can't click it. And I don't know why.
Okay, well, I saved it, so shall I email it to you?
You did?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, it works on mine.
Okay,
how odd.
You saved me. Yeah, can you just email me all that information, and then you have my email from the Zoom call?
Let's see, you invited me